Hello, people of the internet. My name is JD Shadow, and apparently the media is now condoning doxing. The media is now completely condoning doxing, and probably the rest of the Church of COVID, apparently. The whole idea that you're not allowed to question your health experts to make sure that what they're saying to you is the correct information. We have talked about how only those that are approved by the media and the elected officials to tell you what they want you to hear instead of what you need to hear, whether or not it would be something you want to hear or not. And like we've said once before, when everybody involved in this has a political agenda, you are going to be very confused as to figure out what is the truth, and will turn to whatever you can in order to get to the truth, and sometimes that leads to conspiracy theories and what have you. We have seen how Joe Rogan has been put through the mud about what he has said, although they then turn around and believe whatever Bill Gates would tell them. But never before have I seen anybody actually condone doxing, at least until now. You may have heard about a TikTok user that goes by the name of Rexicist, RX the number 0 RCIST. She was a TikTok user. Her real name is Savannah Sparks, and that's okay for me to say because NBC News decided to do an article about her after it was revealed that she was doxing people who were perhaps forging vaccination cards and all of that other stuff, and saying quote-unquote misinformation. Again, what is your definition of misinformation? Is it something that you don't want people to question about what you have said is the right way to combat a very real virus? Let's not get carried away here. Just because you question the response doesn't mean you believe that it is fake. It doesn't believe that you are a denier in any sort of way. It is okay to have both ideas, that it is exactly real, but you are questioning whether or not the responses that we have are the correct responses, or that what you're saying is the correct way to mitigate the risk is in fact helping you to mitigate the risk. That does not make you a quote-unquote COVID denier. What does that even mean? What does that even mean to say you deny COVID? What does that mean exactly? That you don't believe that it's real? Because I don't think anybody in their right mind was going to say that it's fake, that it doesn't exist. But you are allowed to believe that it's real while believing that maybe the way we're going about trying to stop it from spreading is not the right way to go about it, and it's not working. So yeah, there's a bunch of different opinions about how to manage it, how to mitigate the risk. And because of that, we are headed down this path in which no one really understands why some people behave the way they do. Case in point, this TikToker by the name of Savannah Sparks, who goes by the name of Rexicist. I think I'm pronouncing that right with the way she spells her name. If you don't remember who she is, what she did, she went about and to quote-unquote expose those misinformers or quote-unquote deniers. However, her way to do this was to try to put two and two together, go about trying to find their area codes, and then by that to find out where they work. That is the whole definition of what doxing is. It's trying to find information about a person that is not readily available in the public eye. It's a little different if somebody puts their personal information out there for the world to see on a public site such as Facebook or Twitter, but if they are not putting it in the public eye and then somebody goes and investigates to try to find where they work, and they happen to stumble upon it and they reveal it to the public where the person never intended it to be revealed to the public, that is doxing. Especially if it's somebody's home address, which is very dangerous in of itself and something that I do believe she has done before. That is the very definition of what doxing is. But apparently a few media outlets do not believe this is the case. Apparently they are not calling it doxing. They are not calling it for what it is. But they are condemning the people who found her out, who found her information. Now, let's be clear, I'm not condoning the act of doxing in any sort of way, even if it's of people like her, who is guilty of going about and exposing people's personal information when it was not readily available to somebody on Facebook or Twitter or whatever else it was on a LinkedIn profile, whatever. That is doxing. But when it's happening to the other side, apparently now they care. It's okay when it's their side doing it for quote-unquote benevolent purposes. I am not going to read for you the entire article. You can go look it up on Google, or I'll link it to you in the description down below. But not only is this something in which they're not condemning the doxing on one side, but they're condemning it on the other side. Not only is this a mainstream outlet, this is NBC News, and for that matter Newsweek, who are condoning this, but they are misrepresenting who it was that called her out. This was not just trolls that were calling her out. Now, keep in mind that we're also condemning any form of harassment whatsoever on any side, whether it be against somebody or by somebody. But there is a firm difference, a very firm difference between vitriolic harassment and making people accountable for what they're doing. And in the majority of the people who were concerned about this situation, they were calling her out. They were trying to get TikTok to make her accountable for what was going on. Because what would have happened if somebody with a huge axe to grind found out where they worked because of what she had done and decided to take things to the extreme and try to do physical harm to somebody on the basis of where they worked or lived, because they didn't find anything out until she exposed where they were. And given that these more extreme subreddits that we're seeing are trying to assume things about people who may believe that there are better ways in order to mitigate the risk of COVID-19, it is easy to say that some people will indeed celebrate a more extreme version of justice, quote-unquote justice, against these people that she is doxing. So these are not just petty trolls who are out there trying to expose her. And to be quite honest, I would be very disgusted that people are in fact trying to harass her and to spew vitriol or maybe doxing her. That is not right. That is not the right way to go about it. But that doesn't mean that every single person who is trying to make her accountable for what's going on are engaging in vile, vitriolic, hateful harassment against her. They're just trying to make her accountable for the deeds that she is pulling, and me included. I don't believe this is the right answer. And yeah, maybe some of those people who she's quote-unquote exposing are doing the absolute wrong thing. I wouldn't be faking a vaccine card, for one thing. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but that doesn't constitute somebody doxing someone and putting their life in possible danger. And if you've seen some of these subreddits and how crazy some of these people are getting, you will understand what I mean. Yes, it is crazy out there. And yes, this is happening on both sides of the aisle on this subject. We gotta get under control here, or else we're not gonna get anywhere. We have to be allowed to call out our quote-unquote medical experts. We have to be allowed to question them, because that's how we get to the truth. But to be fair, the one thing that I wish would not happen is to have people like Fox News try to appropriate these arguments because they want to gain that audience. And that's why I believe some people are not taking this as something that should be even examined. It is because of this war between cable news outlets and whether or not Fox News says it, and they all realize that Fox News can have opinions mixed into their news reporting. We all know that. That doesn't mean they're the only people that are going to say that there's something wrong with this tactic. And Fox News just latched on to it because they want the viewership that it's going to get them. But the fact of the matter is that it stops us people who really do show concern about this situation with cancel culture, which, by the way, it is real. People try to appropriate that as well. And all of these other buzzwords, quote unquote, that people are using right now, it started from a real world situation, a real world issue. But unfortunately, now we have to worry about people co-opting it, people who are appropriating it for their own malicious purposes, when the actual idea of that is getting completely lost. The actual idea as to why it should be called out is completely lost right now. And that's why when you see people like Rexorcist doing stuff like this and people who are trying to call her out, you instead see people like NBC News trying to get you to believe they're all just trolls that are trying to harass her for doing the quote-unquote good fight. When in reality, what they're doing is they're condoning simple doxing of people who she does not agree with. And that's all this is. People who she does not agree with. Now, to be fair, again, the whole idea of fabricating that you got vaccinated is not exactly the best way to go about it. If you have a difficulty with trusting a vaccine, a particular vaccine, doesn't mean you're anti-vax, but a particular vaccine which you are not comfortable at that point in time in taking, then you should be more honest about that. You should be more honest about your feelings concerning whether or not you are comfortable with taking a particular vaccine at that point in time. It does not mean you are anti-vax on everything or anti-vax at all. It just means that maybe you want some more information, you want some more questions answered before you are ready to take something that you're going to be putting into your body. And that's okay to do. I don't understand why questions are being labeled as excuses for people to be quote-unquote anti-vax. But unfortunately, because people have become so fear-mongered against asking the simplest questions, they are instead going into this realm. And you get a self-fulfilling prophecy. And now they're getting punished because they're doing something that, in all sense of fairness, they might be doing because they feel like they have to in order to not be judged, because they want to be sure that what they are taking is safe. Now, of course, it could be the other side as well, where somebody is just trying to get out of doing what is best for somebody else. But keep in mind that we still have a lot of questions about that. A lot of questions about how contagious some people are. And this whole idea of being sick before proven healthy is damaging to people right now. It's very damaging. And that's why you see people wonder whether or not this is just a way, an excuse. They're using a deadly virus that might be less deadly if we treat it as if we would treat any other illness that we discover, in order to push other things into the mainstream. And no, we shouldn't have politics mixed in with medical decisions. Like I said on this channel before, you shouldn't be shielded from certain experts because they are saying stuff that the public officials, the elected officials, the mainstream media does not want to get out there because it hurts their ratings. Because they want to keep a pandemic that helps their ratings going as long as it possibly can. We're getting told just take the vaccine, and then of course what they're doing is then they put Dr. Fauci on every week and him saying, hey, wear a mask anyway, even if you get vaccinated, and no real reason as to why. And what that leads to is people doing what Rexorcist is accusing people of. And this is leading to people like Rexorcist being celebrated instead of being called out, instead of being scolded like she should be. Now again, we're not saying to harass her, don't try to contact her, because quite frankly, it gives her ammunition for one, and because that brings you down to their level, and you shouldn't be doing that. We should condemn any acts of vitriolic and hate-filled rhetoric aimed at another person or toward another person. But that doesn't mean that every sort of criticism that she has had leveled against her and toward her is akin to harassment or vitriolic. You can condemn the harassment and vitriolic messages that she has received while still believing that she should be called out for this type of behavior. And NBC News and whoever else is believing this should not be mixing the two together. They should be able to tell the difference, show the difference, and then display that the difference here exists in this case. Condoning stuff like this and then condemning those that would call it out only fuels the animosity people are having toward the mainstream media and people like her right now, and makes people a lot more reserved and a lot more fearful to just ask a question, to just ask a legitimate question as to whether or not something is safe to take. My name is JD Shadow, and that just happened.